Welcome back to another episode of Returning to Runescape. Now, it's been a couple weeks since our last episode, and it feels great to be back, boys. Let's just say I've been pretty busy since the previous episode. I decided to set yet another goal for myself on the account. I know, shocker. But in this next grind, I think it's time for us to take a return to questing, but not just any quest. In fact, every single quest we've completed up until this point was going to be mere child's play in comparison to this one. It was time for us to take on our first Grand Master level quest, and it was time for us to return to the Gnomish lands and complete Monkey Madness, the sequel. Now, from what I've gathered, this quest was probably going to push us to our absolute limits, both mentally and physically. Well, maybe not physically, but still, it was going to be a tough one. But before I could even begin this uphill battle, we still needed to gain a few levels and complete a few quests. So, sit back, relax, throw this bad boy up on your second monitor, and enjoy. And if you would be so kind as to leave a like, comment, or even subscribe, it'd be greatly appreciated. Also, don't forget to join the Discord so you can be up to date on all the shenanigans that not only myself, but the community is up to. And I'll leave a link in the description below. Part 1, Slayer. Now boys, up until this point, I've recently done all of my tasks, basically essentially in the wilderness. However, due to some unfortunate events, which were basically just me ending up in the business end of people's bad attitudes, and finding myself waking up from a little nappy nap in Lumbridge, I finally decided to head over to the Gnome Stronghold and give a new Slayer Master a chance. Neve. Naive? Well boys, she did not disappoint. Sheesh! Yes, she gave me a wide range of very versatile tasks that I very much enjoyed. Once again, we were sent all over the beautiful lands of RuneScape in order to hunt more monsters just for shits and giggles. I do find it funny that in old school RuneScape, this is just a skill out of a great list of skills, whereas in other MMOs, this activity single-handedly basically encompasses their entire questing system. It really does just go to show how great RuneScape's quests are in comparison. But I'm starting to ramble. Where was I? Oh yeah. Off we went to finish task after task in this great journey we call slaying. And everything went smooth as butter. And before you knew it, I was level 69, just like that. Alright, I'm lying. This grind took a good while until I finally got the required level for the quest. It did take me all over the land of RuneScape. A lot of places I've actually never even heard of, like killing these worms, for example. I think what I find most enjoyable about Slayer is the opportunity to go out of your way and kill things you never even knew existed. Although some tasks may be less enjoyable than others, like cave horrors for example. I still definitely enjoy the skill, and eventually, after a few days of slaying, I finally reached 69. Nice. So, after achieving this Slayer requirement, I finally had all the skills required to do this quest, and now it was time for us to finish off the remaining quests I had left to do, starting with the Eye of Glorfy. Thankfully, I knew ahead of time that any and all gnome quests normally involve a little bit of fuckery, either in the form of incredibly frustrating mazes, agility traps, or puzzles, or all of the above. So I didn't even try to overcome these quests without the help of Quest Helper, and I am thankful I did, as there would have been multiple points in this quest that I would have been stumped. This quest essentially had me investigating an odd gnomish machine that was recently uncovered. It then took me through an enchanted visit down gnomish memory lane, until I discovered a threat that was long since thought exiled. Thankfully, after solving those puzzles, and decapitating some evil creatures that were masquerading as cute, harmless little pets, I was able to put a stop to multiple assassination attempts. All was right, once again, in Gnomish world. Or was it? After stopping another gnomish tragedy, it was time for us to take to the skies and get a little bit of enlightenment and take a journey. On this journey, I had to return back to the monk lands of Intrana and help Augustus's dreams come true of seeing his hot air balloons take flight. And I can just tell you right now, I wish him all the best, but you definitely aren't going to see me taking any trips anytime soon, because the interface that comes with flying these things is, well, outdated and clunky to say the least. But long story short, after a very confusing, clunky flight, we were able to make it over to Taverley in one piece, somehow. Unfortunately, our hot air balloon escapades were not done here. Oh no. I now had to try and maneuver my way all the way over from Intrana to the Gnome Stronghold. And boys, whoever in the hell thought this was going to be a good way of traveling versus just clicking a button to teleport definitely put way too much Kahlua in their coffee that morning. But after failing a few times, I finally found the exact buttons to complete this aggravating journey, and with its success, the final obstacle blocking me from starting Monkey Madness, the sequel, was over. Alright boys, it was time. Everything we've worked for over these last couple weeks has come down to this moment. I made my way back to the Gnomish Stronghold after taking a quick look at all the items I was going to need. And, I'll admit it, with a healthy dose of nerves and fear, I spoke to the Gnomish King. And just like that, the quest was accepted. You know, at first, things were going pretty smooth. It was just the usual case of go and fetch this and talk to this person and investigate for any clues as to the recent escape of Glau. You know, all well and dandy. Very reminiscent to the first Monkey Madness. However, then things took a turn. I was then sent to that dastardly island ruled over by the monkeys all over again. That's right. I had to say bon voyage to the civilized world, for it was time for us to return to Ape Atoll. Now, almost immediately upon my return, all those dreaded memories of my time spent here came flooding back. But I had to stay strong. I had to keep pushing forward. Because if I was able to overcome these challenges once, I truly believed I had what it took to do it all over again. So I made my way back to the gnomish commander that was still stationed on the island. And upon arriving to him and speaking to both him and then being sent to speak to the king, I found out that dire circumstances were arriving in the form of a military operation against the gnomes. And I knew immediately that only one fiendish devil could be behind all of this, Glau. After turning over the news of what I had found out, I was then sent to track down one of the monkey secret commanders, Crook. And it was at this moment, right here, that things started getting interesting. So I had to make my way over to a secret entrance that revealed a huge underground maze. Immediately, I noticed multiple different agility obstacles, so I knew I was fucked. And fucked I was, boys. For the next 30 or so minutes of my life, I spent that traversing through this hellish nightmare only to fall down repeatedly, especially close to a safe checkpoint. Therefore, I got to do it all over again. Oh, the joys of Ape Atoll, boys. The joys. But I wasn't gonna let some battered bones and bruised limbs stop me from completing my first real Grandmaster quest in this game. So, after every fall, I dusted myself off and I got back on the path. And eventually, this path led me right to Crook. And man, it did not go so well. After finally traversing all of that, I was welcomed into Crook's lair with multiple insanely hard hits to my face, which immediately sent me into a panic and had me second guessing my decision to come here in the first place. Even once I got him stuck in the little safe spot, I knew I was no match for him in my current gear setup. So I threw my ego aside, I teleported out, and I returned with better gear and a better strategy. This time really making good use of the flinching technique I saw on the old school wiki, and it prevented him from attacking me at all. Although this didn't really sit the best with my ego, as I much would have rather preferred a fair fight, I just don't foresee me beating him at my current gear and level any other way. So I cast my honor to the sidelines, and I finished him off without remorse. And after finishing him, I cut myself off a memento of our fight in the form of one of his paws, and I returned to the gnomish wizard to make me a disguise. And with my new disguise in hand, I returned to share the good news of my victory. Now this win was big and immense, but it was not near big enough to completely defeat the monkey's military aspirations. I was now told to head to the lands of the trolls and the ogres to prevent them from creating a union and a bond against the gnomish and humankind. The journey to both of these lands was actually rather quick and painless compared to the journey that I just embarked on. And once I arrived, I was challenged to mortal combat, with the stakes being to decide if these fiendish foes were going to rally together and join the monkeys, or leave well enough alone and stay in their territories. The troll was a simple matter. I used his immense size against him and shot my arrows at his face while in the safety of a doorway. Now the ogre, however, while still large, took a fair bit more of finesse to get him lined up to take care of safely. But, alas, both eventually fell, and they begged for my mercy. I left after proving to them that it was probably for their best interest to not try my patience. And with their defeat, I had their word that they would disband any beliefs of uniting with the monkeys against man and gnomish kind. And after dispatching of those potential enemies, once again I returned to the commander with the news of my success. Now, it was about this point I was actually starting to gather steam and feel like everyone might have been blowing things out of proportion as to the difficulty of this quest. You know, normally, when I get these feelings, this is about the exact moment that things start to go horribly wrong for me. And well, things were not any different here, my friends. After I spoke to Glau's assistant, under the new Crook Grigri disguise, I was able to make a shocking discovery. The monkeys were constructing a fleet of airships to use to bring devastation to the gnomish and human lands. I knew I had to act quickly before this fleet was completed. So I mustered the courage and began the journey even deeper into enemy territory. After a quick rowboat ride, I arrived at the floating construction site. And boys, I had to admit, I was kind of impressed. The mere size of this multi-leveled structure was actually quite astounding. But I had no time to sit in awe, for it was time to get to work. Remember when I said earlier that things were starting to kind of get a little fairly difficult? Well, let's just say I'm not the most graceful when it comes to movement puzzles in this game. And this puzzle definitely pushed me to my limit. It wasn't until I already had the explosive satchels that I actually got caught caught for the first time, which meant that I had to return to the ammunition barrels to refill them with gunpowder in order to bring down the structure. Now, this little game of cat and mouse went on for probably over an hour of me getting caught, thrown overboard, only to try again with a new set of satchels to do it again and again and again. So, needless to say, I wasn't the happiest camper out there, boys. Fuck yeah. Go, 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 go. Fuck! He got me that time. God damn it. That's the same thing that fucking got me last time. Son of a bitch. But I didn't give up. No, we've come way too far to give up now because of some restarts on a stupid puzzle. We're not going out like that, boys. So I pulled up my pixelated bootstraps and I kept pushing forward. And before I knew it, one satchel was placed, and then two. And then finally, the last satchel was placed. And my time here in this floating prison was over. And with that, I finally returned to Ape Atoll, and I turned in the good word that the monkey's plans of constructing any death machines was finally coming to an end. It was finally time to finish off the last piece of Glau's dastardly plans. So once again, I returned to Kruk's dungeon, but this time taking a different route, which eventually led me to his evil laboratory. And upon arriving, I was greeted with a pleasant surprise. I got to imagine what it would feel like to have mounts in old school RuneScape. I mean, look at this guy. He's adorable. I actually named him Kenny. So me and Kenny continued further into what appeared to be a giant cage. And this is where I made the first contact with the monster responsible for all of this. It was Glau himself. It's been a long time since I've run into this twisted gnome, but not long enough. Regardless, I kept my composure to not give away my disguise. Luckily, he was none the wiser to my ruse, and he instructed me to punish some of his unruly experiments as he went looking for his ignorant assistant. Unfortunately, I then had to reprimand these poor innocent creatures. Then an even greater heartbreak happened, boys. Me and Kenny had to say goodbye, so that he could live on to live his life as the best tormented monkey he could be. After leaving Kenny to be the best gorilla monster he could be, I sneakily sabotaged all of Glau's experimentation machines and reported back to the commander. And just as soon as I reported in that Glau's plans had been foiled, the unthinkable happened. Immediately, things started to float, and you could see a big cloud, or what appeared to be a cloud, overtaking the sun. And it was Glau aboard his floating death machine, and it was up to me to save the gnome stronghold and the world from his villainous intent. So quickly, I returned to the king and informed him that his entire civilization was going to be eradicated if we didn't do something immediately. He then sent me to enlist the help of their strongest warrior. That's right, it was time to join forces with Naive. And upon my request, she immediately sprang into action, and the two of us destroyed all the tortured gorillas rampaging across the kingdom as we made our way over to Glau's airship and its crash site. And finally, after a hard-fought journey over to his crash site, we made our way into the burning remains of his ill-fated airship, and we ventured further into the depths. And as we did, we could hear the ominous sounds of demonic callings coming from deeper in the chasm, until we made our way to an entrance where none other than the mastermind behind this whole ordeal was hiding, with his smug, shit-eaten little grin. But now it was time to take the fight to Glau. But just as we entered, prepared to destroy that little fucker, he fled away like the coward he was, sending his abominations after us instead. And unfortunately for their poor tortured souls, they were no match for the combined combo that was myself and Naive's might. However, the joyous moment of our victory was short-lived, for right after defeating them, Glau backed into a corner, in a last-ditch effort, injected himself with the mutagen like the crazy little gnome freak that he is. And what happened next, boys, will weigh down upon my shoulders forever. Neve, in a fit of rage, let loose a war cry as she lunged towards Glau by herself with reckless abandon. The now transformed Glau used his impressive demonic strength to fling her against the cave-sized, which then caused a giant boulder to shake loose and crush my crush. I was and am still devastated, but I had no time to mourn my beloved. Her sacrifice was not going to be in vain. If I didn't kill this gnome freak like I should have all those years ago, her life was not going to be the only one lost that day. The time was now. It was time to make Glau pay for all the evil he's brought to this world. Only one of us was going to walk out of this cave, and I vowed to everyone he's hurt to make sure that he feels all the anguish he's caused tenfold. Upon returning, I found him hiding in a chamber like the scared coward he was, for he may have transformed himself and gained numerous new abilities. Deep inside, he was still the same racist little punk he was before. After getting the better of him in the first two exchanges rather easily, it was time for the third and final showdown, and he knew it as well as I. and he made sure to use every last ability at his disposal. The fight that ensued will surely go down in Noma's legend. Our blows were felt across the cosmos. The entire world of RuneScape was shaking, and it all came down to this. I'll be honest, Glau's evil power was incredible, but his power was his alone, and I had with me all the hopes and dreams of everyone I met across this crazy journey we called old school RuneScape, and I couldn't let them down. Even if it meant sacrificing myself to make sure Glau was destroyed, I would do it without thinking twice. After what felt like an eternity, it was time for our fight to come to a very climactic end. Do we risk it? I think we just risk it. We did it. We did it. We risked it. We got the biscuit, boys. Whew, that was close. And with that, my friends, it was over. And the world of RuneScape could rest easy just a little bit longer. And we could finally add a Grandmaster quest to the list of accolades that we've completed since returning to RuneScape. I am so beyond amazed at how far we've come, my friends. What a crazy journey it's been. I'm so thankful for you and all of your support. Make sure to join the Discord to keep up to date with the journey and meet some truly amazing people. And I'll see you all in the next episode of Returning to RuneScape.